Good morning. What is up? What is up? What is up? I'm Jack, and we are sim racing. Now, it might not be morning for you. It's morning for me. So I got my cup of coffee, and I just want to take a brief moment and introduce this video. So we are comparing today LMU Ultimate and R-Factor 2. Now, this is a part of my search, my quest for the best sim racing single player experience. And I want to clarify that this is not, I'm a big rally fan. This is not rally sims. This is all circuit racing. And this is not arcades. This is all sim racing titles. Now, I chose these 8 sim racing titles for very specific reasons. If you have not watched the previous videos in this series, I highly recommend you clicking the playlist for this series, going back and watching the previous videos. Spoiler alert, I am about to show in just a moment the bracket, which will show which sims have already made it to the next round. So if you have not watched the previous video and you don't want a spoiler alert, pause the video. If you don't care and you just want to find out about LMU Ultimate and R-Factor 2, keep watching. Alright, so far in this tournament, we started off, first video was AC1 versus ACC. AC1 took the victory there because of its content, because of the amount of things that it had going on, the amount of possibilities. GTR2 versus Race Room Racing Experience. GTR2 took a narrow championship there because really it came down to that 2-hour race on GTR2 was incredible. The driving experience was really good, so that was great. Automobilista 2 versus Automobilista 1. This one broke my heart a little bit because I am a bit of a Automobilista 1 fanboy. I love AMS1, the physics, the driving physics, I love it all. And AMS2 was just so good with this new update. This video came out this past weekend after the 1.6 update. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it. It was really fun to compare AMS1, one of my favorite sims, versus AMS2, what is starting to become one of my favorite sims. Now, LMU Ultimate R-Factor 2, that is today's matchup there at the bottom, and that will be the final matchup of this first round. Alright, so there are some things that are going to make today's review comparison really interesting. So, R-Factor 2 and LMU Ultimate, both developed by Studio 397. It gets a little bit tricky because R-Factor 2 was originally developed by somebody else, but then Studio 397 took over. And then LMU Ultimate and R-Factor 2 are both under the Motorsports Games publisher umbrella. And this is where things get a little bit interesting because when LMU Ultimate first came out, a lot of people believed, is this just a reskin of R-Factor 2? We'll get into that when we start driving. And then the other thing is R-Factor 2 already had an endurance pack, which had literally most of this exact same content that's in LMU Ultimate, and for about the same price as LMU Ultimate. So you're paying $35 in R-Factor 2 to get the endurance pack. You pay $37 for LMU Ultimate. It's the same content. And then the other thing that gets a little bit tricky, icky, I don't know what the right word is for it, is LMU Ultimate just made an announcement this week about subscriptions in the game. So basically, they had players buy the game pre-release. They called it like beta testing or whatever. They had people who've already purchased the game. Then they asked people to go ahead and buy DLC, and the DLC was like one car class, I guess, and then, or was it even a car class? No, it wasn't even car classes. It was like liveries and then 1 or 2 tracks. And then they're asking people again to buy more DLC when the GT3 pack comes out, when Interlagos comes out. On top of that, they are now, after all of that, after they've gotten you to buy the game and gotten people to buy DLC, they are now announcing out of nowhere, hey, you're also going to have to pay a monthly subscription just to play the game. And that was not a part of the deal before. So, kind of a little bit sneaky there. And we'll talk about that as we get into the review. So, this is going to be an interesting one. I have a lot to talk about with Le Mans Ultimate and R Factor 2. So this is going to be really, really fascinating. Let's get on to track. I also want to take just a moment and thank all the people who have watched the other single player tournament videos. I really, really appreciate all the people who've watched, commented, subscribed. If you have the I would just really appreciate if you did like, subscribe, if you're enjoying these videos, if you want to keep up with them. If you want to just watch this video, that's fine too. Totally cool. Let's get into some Le Mans Ultimate Racing, followed by R Factor 2. Let's talk about them. Let's compare them. Let's get it. In qualifying, I flat spotted my tires, and I should have gone to the pits to change them, but I didn't, and I didn't put in a good lap because of that. So we're starting here at P20. Fun stuff. Starting from the back. Maybe we'll make up a few positions. Who knows? But yeah, that's the game plan. We're going to be starting from the back. So Le Mans Ultimate does have a few things that make it feel a little more polished than R Factor 2. I feel like the whole UI feels a little more polished, feels a little more modern. The immersion of the race start and all that, just how the whole package fits together feels a little more polished, feels a little more finished, feels really, really nice, and gives a good sense of immersion. This is not the only race that I'm doing to prepare for this video, but just to make it easy for recording and things like that, I'm going to do a 15-minute video here in GTEs, and then I'm going to talk while driving for this video. So let's get into it. Le Mans Ultimate.
Formation lap has started.
Oh, we gotta wait. So, a few things right off the bat. This whole formation lap setup is pretty cool. Gives a good sense of immersion. The first couple times I did this, I got a drive-through penalty. Hoping to not get a drive-through penalty here. But let's talk during this formation lap about some of the news from Le Mans Ultimate this week. The December update is going to come with a few things, some good, some bad, some really bad. So let's talk about it. So the big news, the big controversy is the subscription system that was announced. And this is why it bothers me. Le Mans Ultimate, if you bought the game right now, like I did, you've paid what you assumed was the price of the game. If you enjoyed the game, you may have bought some of the DLC. The few tracks and the few cars and the few liveries that they're willing to offer, because they fit into the WEC calendar and all that stuff. If you bought some DLC and you bought the game, you may have been under the assumption that means you can play the DLC and you can play the game, at least for a long time. Well, that seems to not be the case. They announced that they're going to have a subscription service, and to play the game, you are going to have to pay monthly subscription. Kind of like iRacing. The reason this bothers me more than anything is I wouldn't mind if that was kind of announced from the beginning, but the reason that bothers me is you've now had tons and tons and tons of people who have already paid and bought this game under the assumption that they could play this game. And then they've spent their own money, hard-working, earned money. And now they're like, wait, I'm going to then have to pay monthly? It just seems so shady to me. And it seems just like not a good business practice, in my opinion. If it was, made clear that that was going to be the case from the very beginning, that's different. All right, let's get this race started, and then we'll talk more about the game and kind of put some of those negatives to the side. Oh my gosh. We're going to make a bunch of cheap passes here. Oh, as we get squeezed on the inside. Probably my fault for going into a space I did not belong there. And back to last place. So, let's talk about some of the other news from the developer update. Physics improvements. I'm pretty proud of this because I was making notes for this video of how I thought Le Mans Ultimate drove. And in my notes, I said, locks up too easily and goes from grip to slip too easily. And then, a day later, they released a video talking about what they're fixing in the game. And I had not seen any YouTubers really talking about that. And then a day later, development update, they say, the cars go from grip to slip too easily. And so we're going to improve that. When you're just barely over the grip, that's kind of the way they worded it. When you're just over the grip, the loss of grip is too aggressive. I believe that's the exact wording that they said. And I agree with that. I feel like you have to drive under the limit a little too much in this game. Same with braking. It locks up pretty easily. I know these cars don't have ABS. And that makes these cars really enjoyable to drive, is that you do have to be conscious of how you're braking, and you have to be on the limit of the brakes, and that's how you have pace. I love that. That's why it's kind of sad that all the racing series are moving to GT3 cars rather than GTE, because these are really, really fun to drive because of that. And some real racing drivers mention that as well, where they talk about how they are saddened by GTE cars kind of going away. So I don't consider myself an expert on physics, but I do appreciate the fact that the two physics quirks that I identified as being a bit difficult in this game are going to be addressed in the December update. Kind of cool. So, let's talk about the single player experience. Let's talk about game modes. What game modes do you have with all that money and all that subscription money that you're going to be paying? Basically one. Maybe two. You have the co-op mode, which is pretty cool. That is a feature that is unique to Le Mans Ultimate and not in any other games. Basically, if you want to run an endurance race with a buddy or a group of buddies, you can against the AI. Do I have enough gas to finish this race? I might not have enough fuel to finish this race. If you want to run against the AI with some buddies in an endurance race and do driver swap, you can. That is a very cool feature. I have not done it. I have not tested it. I would love to do it. Just maybe got to make some friends. No, I'm just kidding. But definitely seems like a cool feature that I don't know how many people will actually use it. Because, you know, you have to work it out with your buddy's schedule, and you have to carve out huge chunks of time to do an endurance race. And I feel like if you're going to do that, you're probably going to do like an online endurance race against real humans rather than against the AI. Maybe that's just me. Some other things to note. Oh, one more game mode, sorry. And the one that you would probably spend the most single player time doing, is just race weekend. What I'm doing right here, which is setting up a race that interests you. And yeah, running that race against the AI. No custom championship, no season mode, no WEC season mode, anything along those lines, which is quite a bit of a shame. As this, let's see if this Aston is going to send it up the inside here. Maybe we can beat him on the brakes. Good move from the AI. Nice. Good stuff from the AI. Yeah, so no season mode, which is a shame because they said in their December update they're adding online championships, which seems like that would take way more work than doing something as simple as making a season mode or a WEC championship mode, whatever they want to call it, but just playing through the calendar for just frustrates me. Like, I would enjoy playing a season as a GTE driver, finishing that up, and then maybe hopping into the LMP2s and doing the calendar, then hopping into a hypercar and doing the calendar. I mean, you know, you can spend some single player time doing that, but it seems like Le Mans Ultimate has made the decision that they're going all in on online racing, and they are going to completely ignore any single player features. Which is interesting because the single player racing is good. The AI is good. The AI makes really good pit decisions. The AI handles endurance racing really, really well. It is kind of weird that the AI is done so well, and yet they're going to completely ignore using the AI or any game modes that would be enjoyable for using the AI. It just seems so bizarre to me. But yes, the AI manages pit strategy really, really well. There are sometimes it does some like quirky stuff where it, like, you know, doesn't time its pit strategy perfect, or everybody runs kind of like a predictable pit strategy. But for the most part, long races against the AI work. You can run multi-class, you can run single class. When I was doing my multi-class races and testing, the only reason I didn't do multi-class here is because it's going to be a 15-minute race, so there wouldn't be much lap traffic anyways. But when I did some multi-class races to test this video, they handled lap traffic extremely well. I'd say about on par with how the AMS2 AI was handling multi-class traffic in the last video in the 1.6 update. They made their passes in smart places, smart times. They didn't really get held up behind the slow cars too much. I thought the AI was excellent in multi-class racing, which was really encouraging. You do have a few combos you could do, just hypercars and GTE. You could do LMP2 and GTE, which would probably be my combo that I would enjoy the most. Or you can obviously do the full WEC thing. There are times where they do kind of get into a bit of a train and don't really make passes on each other. But that's not for the full race. And these are cars with a lot of downforce, and that happens in real life as well. Um, but once they start mixing it up with multi-class, it gets really, really interesting, and they do battle and handle it well. It's not perfect, but I would say it's pretty much top of the sim racing genre as far as how multi-race and multi-class endurance racing is handled. So all in all, let me see how much we got. 3 laps of fuel. I think we're gonna be okay. I cut it way too close on fuel. I don't think I accounted for the formation lap. And I haven't been able to make a pass. I've kind of been just kind of stuck behind this AI. It was not very difficult to find the right AI settings. The slider. It was really easy, and I've also noticed that the AI, this is important, the AI skill from track to track it's scheduling a pit. Maybe they do think that I'm going to run out of gas. The AI skill from track to track is pretty consistent. So for example, if am I going to run out of fuel? I'm sorry. I'm so concentrated on whether I'm going to run out of fuel or not. If you get the AI skill, that's my first kind of lockup of this race. If you get the AI skill good at Fuji, then their skill is probably going to translate to Bahrain, etc. So that is nice, unlike some sims where, oh, we are too late on the brakes. We're going to take the... Oh, no! Oh, no! Oh my goodness gracious. Well, that is a way to end the race. Never a dull moment, is it? Never a dull moment with Jack Crater's sim racing. Alright, well, testing the damage system here. I cannot believe I just did that. If you watched my AMS2 video, I also threw away that race with like 2 minutes left. Oh my gosh, it feels so bizarre now with damage. So, that was hilarious. Okay, well, we're gonna finish last place here. If I had put in a decent quali, because I was on pace with the AI, if I hadn't flat spotted in quali and put in a decent quali time, it probably would have been a really competitive race, actually. So, anyways, I kind of think that's funny, so I'm going to leave this in the video. Overall, here's my impression and summary of Le Mans Ultimate. I do not like the business structure of what Motorsports Games is doing. It feels like they are just asking for money, asking for payments, and then sneaking in more payments, and it just begs the question for me, okay, if I pay the subscription system, what's going to stop you from adding just ridiculously expensive DLC on top of that? And what's to stop you from then doing like a special online subscription system or bumping up the cost of the subscription system? If you already showed me you're willing as a company to sneak in a payment like you are now, you're probably going to do that again later in the future as well. So it just leaves me not trusting the company. And to be honest, I'm not going to pay for the subscription system. So that's one of my massive, massive gripes with this game. But compared it to R Factor 2, the physics are an improvement. This is not just a direct copy of R Factor 2. It is not... I'm trying to think of how to word this. Like, AMS2, version 1.5 to 1.6 feels like almost a larger leap than R Factor 2 to Le Mans Ultimate feels like, in my opinion. But it does feel different, and I think the user interface is massively improved here in Le Mans Ultimate over R Factor 2. I think the clean package of how easy it is to set up a race, all that stuff is improved over R Factor 2. But R Factor 2 has a lot more content that you can play with. We are going to run out of gas. We are out of gas. Almost. We're on fumes. There it goes. We're not even going to finish the race. Okay. So we're going to switch over to R Factor 2 in just a second. But I hope you kind of got a little bit of a glimpse of the racing. I hope you got an idea of my thoughts behind Le Mans Ultimate. Hilarious that we didn't even finish the race. As very on brand for me is like 3/4 of the race being really good and then me just being an idiot at the end of the race. I love it. So funny. Okay. Rexy, I'm sorry I didn't do you proud. R Factor 2. Let's get it. Alright, here we go. R Factor 2. Let's get through the first few turns and then I'm going to do a little talking. Lots of wheel spin. We're in the SR3 Radicals. Such a fun car. Ooh, car flying up my outside. Does that white light where the brake lights are, does that white light mean they're coasting? I think that's what that means. I don't know. A little bit of sporadic, chaotic behavior from the AI, but somehow everybody survived. I've done this race in my AI testing. I've done this race 2 or 3 times, and all the other times the AI hit a curb and just went flying off into outer space. Somehow this time that did not happen. We lost a lot of positions there. Okay, let's talk about R Factor 2 versus LMU. If you watch the first half of this video where I talk about LMU, you know that I have some complaints about the business side of things and about how little is offered for your money. And R Factor 2 here you know, same business, motorsports games, same developers, Studio 397, basically the same physics engine. I think the same base physics engine. I think LMU has been pushed a little bit further, but you have so much more content here in R Factor 2, and I think that's going to be one of the big points of this comparison. Is like this type of car doesn't exist in R Factor 2 or in LMU. Rather, oh, I shouldn't have gone into first gear there. You just get the cars that are in WEC, and that's all. You don't get. Whereas here, you can get MX5 Cup cars, you can get touring cars, you can get all those cars from the WEC in a DLC pack that happens to be about the same price as Le Mans Ultimate, interestingly enough. $2 cheaper in the US. So it's interesting because you get basically the same game with way more content. And I think that's one of the most interesting things. So let's talk, oh my gosh. Let's talk about some of the differences. The AI is a little less refined here. I think the AI, in my experience, was better in LMU. Was it significantly better? No. I think the AI, this is going to be hard to describe. I think it comes down to the lack of quantity of content. That is the reason why the AI was better in LMU. If you're only making the AI compete on, let's say, 7 different tracks, it's a lot easier than making the AI compete on all these tracks, all these modded tracks that are available in rFactor 2. So I think that probably plays a little bit of a role. Adding on to the fact that there's significantly more cars in rFactor 2. But I think the AI in rFactor 2 is really, really good. And I would say if the AI is, let's say, an 8 or a 9 in LMU, it's a 7 or an 8 here. It's only 1 point lower. The handling is something that is interesting because it's very, very clear that this is the same physics engine. I think if you gave me LMU, I want you to remember that corner right there because that was really interesting, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. If you gave me LMU and blindly let me test it when compared to rFactor 2, I think I would still be able to tell you, yep, that was the same developer. Whereas if you gave me AMS1 and AMS2, I think it would be a little bit more difficult, besides the fact that the content is all Brazilian. I think it would be a little more difficult for me to tell you that they were both from the same developer. This feels very much like the same game engine, all that stuff. The difference in the handling is that LMU, you feel like you're constantly driving under the limit, and I mentioned that when I was testing it. I felt like I had to be very careful under the limit. In the game update, they even mentioned that as something they're trying to fix. Because the moment you go over the limit to, let's say, 101% of grip, the car snaps on you in LMU. Here we have literally the exact opposite, where I feel like I can almost drive, listen to the tires through a lot of these sections. I feel like I can drive at 105% of the limit with no fear at all of spinning out. It's so easy to go over the limit like that and just keep the throttle pinned and control the car. Easy might be an exaggeration, but possible might be a better way to put that. It is possible to do, whereas in LMU it feels impossible. I think reality is probably somewhere in between the two. Not quite as forgiving as this, not quite as punishing as LMU. Gosh, I wish I didn't fall so behind at the beginning of the race so we could get some interesting AI action here. But hopefully we'll get that in a minute. As I almost immediately catch up to the back of this pack. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. Okay. So I think when considering the difference between these two games, I think it does come down to content. I think if you are... LMU is slightly more of a refined package. And I think if you are a huge WEC fan and you feel like it's worth it to get that content, I understand. Go for it. But I think here you're getting 85 to 90% of the quality of LMU. See, over the limit, and I'm able to just throttle through. And I also feel like that's the fastest way, is driving slightly over the limit. I feel like you're getting 80 to 90% of the quality, like AI's ability, AI pit strategy, car handling, car physics. You're getting almost the same game with just way more content. And the thing I really want to talk about is the fact that R-Factor 2 has the Endurance Pack for $35, which, guess what, gets you every single car that is in LMU. It gets you hypercars. Oh, I almost went too far there. Or maybe it's LMP1s, actually, and not hypercars. I need to double check that. But it gets you, as you see the AI making mistakes there. The AI does feel pretty believable after the first couple corners in this game. Believable that they're human, which I enjoy. But you get the hypercars, you get the LMP2s, and you get GTEs. So you're getting essentially the same content with that pack for the same price as LMU. So before the subscription service was announced with the new LMU update, what I would have said as my recommendation, oh my goodness, that's the end of the race, we'll have to talk in the conclusion. What I would have said my recommendation would be to buy R-Factor 2 if you want. Don't buy the Endurance Pack, and then buy LMU as the Endurance Pack. But now, with the subscription for LMU, I'm not sure if it's worth it. So, it's really interesting. I feel like in this conclusion we got a lot to talk about. Let me just briefly say a few more things. Handling, again, I think it's a little too forgiving, but overall it's a really enjoyable drive. The car mods that you can download from the Steam Workshop, really, really good. The track mods, amazing. Lots of tracks you can download, which, create endless fun. And they all handle pretty well. And they all, it's not like AMS1, as I mentioned in AMS1, where some of the mods just handle so bizarrely. All might be an exaggeration, but there's a lot of really good mods that handle really, really well of a high quality app. Okay, I kind of think the race is over. I've had checker flag on the screen for a while. Let's just return to the pits. So, let's go to the conclusion and let's talk about it. Alright, I decided to re-record this conclusion because I was listening to myself go back and forth between these two sims, and it felt not super concise. So let's do this in a very simple way. I am going to list out the ways R-Factor 2 is better than Le Mans Ultimate. List out the ways that Le Mans Ultimate is better than R-Factor 2, and then we will share our final decision. Some ways that R-Factor 2 is better than Le Mans Ultimate. It's a little more forgiving to drive, much more base content, or not base content, but just content in general, with mods, DLCs, and even base content as well. But much more content available. If you want to drive Clio Cup cars, if you want to drive some vintage cars, if you want to drive the Radical that I just drove, or even if you want to drive those cars that are in the WEC, you can drive those in R-Factor 2, and all sorts of tracks. Both games, negative for both games, neutral for both games is the game modes. Yes, Le Mans Ultimate does have that co-op mode. I don't think a ton of people are going to use that or going to coordinate with their friends. Hey man, do you want to do a 6 hour race together against the I don't think many people are going to use that. So for the most part, the main mode people are going to use is that single player, single race mode. No custom championships for either of them. Um, Let me think of some other ways R Factor 2 is a little bit better. I think honestly it just boils down to content. Um, I mean, I also like the HUD is a little bit cleaner, but I don't think that's worth considering as a pro over LMU. I think it really just boils down to content for R Factor 2. The ways Le Mans Ultimate is better than R Factor 2. It's a more complete package. When you load up the game, the UI is so much easier to navigate. It just feels way easier to set up a race. The quality of the content. So yes, it is less content, less tracks, things like that. But the AI handles those tracks so much better. The uh, the AI handles pit strategies and things like that better because of the slimmer amount of content. It is able to just be a higher level of content, and they're getting information from those racing teams about the cars as well. So overall, way higher quality of content. Um, AI race consistency. So R Factor 2, I can have races as good as Le Mans Ultimate, but Le Mans Ultimate, every single race that I did in testing was good. 100% of the races I raced against the AI were good. R Factor 2, I'd say about 70% of the races were good. Because you just have weird, quirky AI behavior or that sort of thing. Um, yeah, so the overall finished package. I will also say the driving experience and force feedback and things like that are marginally better in Le Mans Ultimate. It's not a massive gap. It's not like, whoa, this is game breaking. I think it's not drastically different. But again, just the quality. Everything feels more polished and everything feels that much better in Le Mans Ultimate. So, which one is going on to the next round? It's a tough decision because this is literally a quality versus quantity decision that I have to make right here. And I do think for this, and I'm surprising myself a little bit. I've thought about this a lot today, but I'm surprising myself a little bit with this decision. I do think I am choosing Le Mans Ultimate over R Factor 2 for the simple reason that 100% of the time I load up a race and it's good. R Factor 2, there are races that are good, there are races that are also not so good. So that's what it boils down to, just the quality of content. Now, I'm going to deviate from that discussion for just a second and give you a quick little buyer's tip or buyer's guide. If I didn't own either of these games and I really felt like I wanted to play these games, first off, I would say motorsports games don't like what they're doing. I would probably just choose to not buy them if it was me. But if I was dead set on buying them, what I would probably do is I would get R Factor 2, but I would not get the endurance pack from R Factor 2 that is $37, and instead I would buy Le Mans Ultimate for $35. The whole subscription thing is kind of throws off that theory, but whatever. We talked about that enough in this video. So that concludes our first round in our search, our quest for the best single player sim racing experience. We've got AC1, AMS2, and GTR2 and Le Mans Ultimate moving on to the next round. I'm excited about the GTR2 Le Mans Ultimate matchup because it's like a brand new sim focused on endurance racing versus an older sim focused on that. AMS2, AC1, that's kind of like the hot new game since the 1.6 update everybody's excited about, versus AC1, which a lot of people consider to be the GOAT. So it's going to be really fun. We got 3 more videos to come out in this series. We got the two semifinal matchups, and then the championship matchup. So thank you so much for watching. If you're still watching to the end, I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you for the next one, which is going to be AC1 versus AMS2, hopefully coming out next weekend. Maybe a video coming out before then, earlier in the week, but definitely by next weekend, AC1 versus AMS2. And with that, I'm signing out. Peace.